Hey, you guys.
Did you lose your bike?
No.
Oh.
I'm working on something you might be interested in.
Okay, what are you working on?
A plan to save the world.
Wow.
You interested?
Yeah, how are you
Anybody?
saving the world? How are you saving the world?
Okay. So, I don't know if you noticed, but our government has stopped working.
Yeah, we were just talking about this
Did you
morning.
notice that?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
terrible. We're very stressed.
And people, this last election, voted to blow it all up
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
because it's so
Retweet.
fucked.
yeah, everyone
Okay.
was just like, "Wah!"
One example is our healthcare system.
Yeah.
Another is all the endless wars.
Yeah.
So, and it's been going on. I mean, when I was your age,
Mm.
Vietnam was going on, so I was
Yeah.
draft age,
Yeah.
Wow.
and that's
scary.
when I started paying attention.
Yeah.
And I had thought about enlisting. My sister was 4 years older in college. She said maybe you should check in and see what
Yeah.
that war's about.
Yeah.
I did,
Yeah.
and then I went to college to avoid the draft.
Wow.
So I thought, okay, it was bad,
Yeah.
but at least they learned a lesson, right? That was a
Did they?
stupid thing to do,
Right.
you know, getting involved in wars
Yeah.
that you have no business being involved in.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't learn the lesson. Here's the lesson they learned. You don't have to win a war to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just have to go to war and be at war,
Yeah.
okay? It turns out that there was a president, Dwight Eisenhower. You heard of him?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Dwight Eisenhower, when he got elected, he had been the supreme Allied commander in World War II of the European forces,
Yeah.
the Allied forces. So he knew war pretty well, and he came back. He was elected president. So one of the first things he did within months of being elected president was he gave a speech, and it was called the
Something address.
I think
Probably.
well,
Right?
No, his farewell address is what you're thinking about.
Yeah,
That was
is that what
another
I'm thinking
speech.
of?
This
Uh-huh.
is before that. His farewell address is when he warned about the military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in this
Relatable.
speech, I think he called it a chance for peace speech.
Okay. Cool. Love it.
Okay, and in it he said that God, you gotta look it up on
Read it.
on YouTube and
Yeah.
listen to him. Don't
Yeah.
don't read it. Listen to
Yeah.
him
Okay,
give
yeah,
the
give it.
speech.
Yeah.
Okay, and he's basically saying, you know, for every warship, you know, it's so many schools and so many hospitals and so much wheat and all this stuff that you're wasting. He said you're taking money away from people who are hungry and can't eat, you know. He said it's a theft. He said basically it's a crime against humanity,
Yeah.
and nobody's going anywhere. He said it's too much for any system, the United States system or the Soviet system, which was Russia at the time,
Yeah.
or anybody to
Handle.
make a good life for their citizens and do these endless wars.
Yeah.
So nothing changed. So at the end of his term, when he was giving his farewell address, he said, you know, watch out for the military-industrial complex because they're going to take undue influence of the government,
Yeah.
and we're screwed. So we haven't been able to. Nobody's been able to do anything about it. They're so powerful. Okay, the money in politics, the big money in politics is controlling everything. So the
Oh, yeah.
oligarchs are in control.
Oh yeah.
So
Our
I've been.
generation, it's like we won't own homes. Like there's just
Yeah,
everything's
yeah.
so fucked.
Yeah, so
Like,
so let me tell you about that. So prior to 2008, after the Great Depression, you guys heard of the Great Depression?
Of course,
Okay.
my grandparents were in that
So
era.
after the Great Depression, they passed 13 laws to prevent it from ever happening again.
Yeah.
Okay, the banking industry took about 10 years and only spent maybe $150 million to get 150 million, I think. Whitney Tilson and Mortgage Meltdown talked about it, to get all of those laws repealed, and then they just went crazy.
Yeah.
So the one thing was to get, for example, to get investment banks and regular banks, keep them separate and all that stuff. So now it just turned it, because before it was a big gambling casino, and it went back into being a gambling casino, and they really fucked it up,
Yeah.
really bad. And on top of that, they committed fraud, and then Obama just let them all go. He had all these bankers in his, and I'm a lifelong Democrat, you know, he had all these bankers on his cabinet. So that's just one of the problems that this has caused. So there's a guy, Bradley Tusk. You'll hear about him. Okay, he will have a greater impact on humanity than Elon Musk. And he
Please.
doesn't want to go to
hope so.
Mars. He wants to stay here on Earth and fix the problems that we
Right,
have.
right.
So
It's a novel
Bradley
thought.
was one of the people who worked on the campaign to get Uber legalized around the country.
Ah.
Okay, so there were all these taxi lobbyists and all these politicians who were entrenched in the pocket of the taxi lobby that didn't want it to happen. So what the guys working on the Uber app did was they said, okay, people like using Uber, you know, like in New York City, people loved it, but New York said you can't have any more. You're cutting it off. You got a limited number of ride shares that you can do, period.
Right.
And so what they did was they put a button on the Uber app, and it connected people directly to their
Taxis.
their politicians,
Oh.
to their mayor and city council. And before you know it, they did this all around the country, and it's legal now. Ride sharing is now legal.
Yeah.
Uber and Lyft, you can do it.
Yeah.
Before that, you couldn't. It was illegal. So the taxi industry had a monopoly on it.
Yeah.
So what Bradley thought was he took part of his compensation in Uber stock, and he made hundreds of millions of dollars. And his parents were immigrants, and so he decided, I'm going to give back to the country. So he started working on an app. He thought that this works so good for democracy, let's have an app to save democracy. So
Literally.
let's have a mobile voting app. He says it turns out that people would rather press a button on their phone than go someplace to vote.
Yeah.
And if you can increase voter turnout, you can increase the amount of impact that people have in their government. Because Princeton University did a study, and they determined that after looking at years of data, massive amount of data, they determined that citizens, the opinions of citizens have a near zero, statistically insignificant impact on politicians and
So
policy.
upsetting.
Okay, near zero, statistically insignificant. You guys take statistics, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're like business people.
There
I
you go.
work in like not business. I work with like children.
So
You do important work.
you seen the commercial? Can you hear me now? Have you? Okay, this would be before your time probably.
It's
But there
also
used to be
very-
a commercial where people had trouble getting reception, and they go, "Can you
Oh,
hear me
yeah,
now?
yeah,
Can you hear
okay.
me now?" Okay. So the thing is that kind of reminds me of that, because what Bradley's idea
Is
is
saying,
that for a
like,
mobile app
yeah.
for democracy,
Yeah.
so that you can vote off of your mobile phone, because everybody has a smartphone.
Yeah.
You have access to the internet. Here's what you also have, which he hadn't talked about in his book, but you also have access to social media. So we have the internet, we have social media, we have smartphones. We never ever had that before. You guys grew up with it. We didn't have it. So now we've got this powerful tool.
Yeah.
And he spent, because he made all this money on his Uber stock, he spent over $20 million of his own, and I think he spent like 10 years on it, developing this app to vote on your phone.
Yeah.
They've tested it in multiple jurisdictions in 7 states over the last 10 years. He's validated it, verified it, it's safe, it's secure, okay? They're improving it all the time. It's not running on blockchain, although he talks about that in his book, because the reason for Bitcoin was because Satoshi, or the group that is Satoshi, was pissed off about the 2008, about the banking industry being so corrupt and screwing everybody over, and like transferring trillions of dollars to the top 1% through that whole process. Bernie Sanders just said the other day, over the last 50 years, the top 1% has transferred $50 trillion from the bottom 90% to the top 10%. 50 trillion. That's, I don't know if you guys know.
unreal.
You guys are business majors.
Unfortunately not.
Sorry, I'm supposed to be working right now, so I'm just I'm on my work phone.
We're
That's
like, "Come
okay.
on, work with
But
us."
here's the thing. So here's what I'm thinking, okay, is if we can get, Bradley Tusk is saying if he can get 10 to 30% more people registered to vote, that we
Yeah.
can change things.
It's like critical
What
mass.
what I'm saying is, yes, critical mass, exactly. Okay.
Hey, yo.
It's funny you should mention critical mass, because right now we're on the verge of nuclear war in 3 different continents.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Okay. So it's
That's
very
the
important that we
thing.
do
It
this
is,
now.
yeah.
Now's the time to do this, right?
Yeah.
So my idea is let's get 90% or more. Well, how would you do that? You guys know who Mr. Beast is?
Yeah,
You go know.
I do.
Okay,
I used
they
to
know. They'll
teach
tell
middle
you.
School, so
So
I love that.
Mr. Beast, okay, Mr. Beast. I could, if I wasn't recording right now. Let me see if I'm still recording.
I'll go
So we
look
can,
it up.
so Mr. Beast. If you look up Mr. Beast right now, guess how many views he's got on YouTube?
Oh gosh, like
Something absurd.
millions.
Yeah.
How, like, take a wild guess. An absurd number. Give me an
Like
absurd
40
number.
million.
Like 40 million? Okay.
Like 10.
He's got one video, just one, called Beast Games, and it's a parody of a critique of capitalism that Netflix did a series of called Beast Games. It's the highest viewed series that they've ever done, and he did a parody of that on his channel. Last time I looked, it was 666 million
Holy.
views. So total, last time I looked, he's got like 65.8 billion views on his main channel. He's got like 8 channels,
Yeah.
okay? And he's got Instagram and all the other
Yeah.
things, okay? Facebook and all that.
These are in.
So this guy, he's got over 300 and, I don't know, 300, he's got more subscribers than there are people living
Wow.
in the United States.
Wow.
Okay, so the guy, okay, just recently we had Buddhist monks from Tibet, 2 Tibetan Buddhist monks from India stay with us for 3 weeks.
Wow.
We did San Mandalas for World Peace in Santa Maria, Avila, San Luis Obispo. We did one in Ojai with them, and we just got back from Las Vegas with them.
Woo.
Okay, and they're going to get me a letter from the Dalai Lama for my plan for world peace that I'm working on. Okay, now my idea is get somebody like Mr. Beast and Taylor Swift, the
Yeah.
Swift
Yeah.
effect. Okay,
Yeah.
she got more
Yeah.
people
The
registered to
Swifties
vote
did?
in the shortest period of time of
Yeah.
anybody ever in history.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so Taylor Swift and Mr. Beast and Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Okay, they're saying that Kamala Harris lost because she didn't go on Joe Rogan. You
What?
laugh, but
I honestly wouldn't be
That's
surprised.
crazy.
people say that. But I don't think it would have
Wow.
either. But they're saying that that's one of the reasons because he's so influential.
Yeah.
He's
Now,
very influential.
Mr. Beast partnered with Mark Roper, another internet influencer.
Yeah.
They did a nonprofit called Team Tree, and when he hit 20 million viewers, which wasn't that long ago, so
Yeah.
20 million subscribers. Now he's at over 300 million, but it wasn't that long ago when he hit 20 million. So he did this Team Tree things, and he says to celebrate, I'm going to plant 20 million trees around the world.
Love.
He did it. So Mark Roper was another internet influencer. They teamed up with other internet influencers. They said, Mark Roper said, the kids were saying, they were asking their parents to use their allowances to support Team Trees
Yeah.
and stuff like that. They organized their schools to support Team
Yeah.
Trees. Elon Musk gave them $1 million to support Team Trees. So he planted 20 million trees around the world. Okay, that's like absurd, right?
Yeah.
So if he can do that, if we have a Team Trees type campaign
Yeah.
to get Bradley Tusk's voting
Yeah.
app,
Yeah.
he calls it a mobile app.
Yeah.
I call it a smartphone app, so I call it smart voting. He calls it mobile voting.
Yeah.
Well, let's call it smart voting,
Yeah.
okay? Because it is, right? Let's get it into the hands of 90% of the voters in
Yeah.
the United States within a year. That would be faster adoption
Yeah.
than ChatGPT or Bitcoin or the internet. Okay, technology adoption rates. Have you ever seen the curve?
Yeah,
Okay.
Early adopter.
Yeah, so let's just blow past the chasm and get over to the mainstream wide adoption, right? And I think that somebody like Mr. Beast, guy's got 65
Right.
billion
He's got an
views,
audience,
right?
for sure.
On one channel. He can do this just
Yeah.
by himself. But okay, now let's get all the other internet influencers, because guess what? If you pay attention, 90% of them are saying the same thing,
Yeah.
that our government is screwing us.
Yeah.
It's screwed. It's
Yeah.
broken.
Yeah.
Let's fix it. We need to fix it. So the only way to really fix it, because people have tried to get campaign laws passed in the past, anti-corruption campaign laws. My last name is Tillman. One famous one is the Tillman Act. They overturned it, okay? Citizens United, did you hear about that one? So the Supreme Court opened it up for anybody to give any amount of money and
Yeah.
not even disclose who's giving the money to anybody they want at any time. And I'm just like glossing over the details because
Yeah.
I don't know them well enough to tell you. But basically, that was it.
Yeah.
Citizens United. What we got to do is we've got to fix the corruption in our government. So there's a group called Represent Us. I don't know if you've ever heard of Robert Reich or
yeah.
Lawrence Lessig or anyway, Trevor Potter. Trevor Potter did a super PAC for Stephen Colbert when he was trying to show how ridiculous it was
Right,
the impact that super PACs have on politics. So Trevor Potter was the head of some big government agency on campaign contributions or whatever. Him and Lawrence Lessig and a bunch of other scholars and constitutional experts wrote this basically a blueprint for an amendment to eliminate corruption from our politics. Okay, and that's the short story of it. I'm glossing over a lot of details, but Represent Us, they have this all set to go. The thing is it's almost impossible to get that through Congress. The reason is it takes 2/3 of Congress and it takes 3/4 of the states to get a constitutional amendment. But unless you do that, if you pass a law, the Supreme Court's going to overturn it or the Congress is going to repeal it. You know, you don't. It's shaky ground. Okay, so you need a constitutional amendment to solve the problem of the corruption in our government, and we need to fix it. We need to fix it fast. So I think this mobile voting app that Bradley Tusk has, in combination with a big major campaign by all these internet influencers, would do the trick.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
I think you need also like bipartisan support.
Exactly,
Yeah,
nonpartisan,
yeah.
nonpartisan,
Yeah,
because it's
right.
got to be everybody, not
Right.
just the two parties.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the voter fraud and like election fraud is huge, and that when you were talking about this, that's my initial reaction.
Okay.
Is
So
that, like, you know.
Bradley has verified this,
Totally,
validated
but I
it.
think like
It's-
the
People need to know that.
adoption and the
Yeah.
like, yeah.
And I don't understand the technical details of the app, but his
Sure.
book, Mobile Voting May Be Our Last Chance to Save Our Democracy, is he has at least
Yeah.
one whole
Yeah.
chapter on the technical details of why it's so secure and safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we do everything else but
Yeah.
vote.
Yeah.
So, like, there's no reason why we couldn't vote.
Right.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right?
But it
right.
it's like an education barrier to why that is secure.
It
You
is.
know?
Right.
Unfortunately, because the people
Right.
who have the stand to lose the most are also maybe the people who.
That are the most conspiracy
Resistant to it. Yeah. So the thing is that this would be a whole part of this. It would be like a marketing campaign and an
Absolutely.
No, it's gonna be a
educational
massive
campaign.
marketing-
It would have to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
educational, so people
It
know.
is. It's like a PR thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Start it now, so by the
Yeah.
time the next election comes up, we don't
Yeah,
have to
It'd be
so,
really cool
yeah,
if there was like a polling function as well. Like I know. Like,
No,
the
this is it.
American-
This is
yeah,
it. So
yeah.
here's the thing. So initially, instead of making it for official voting,
Right.
let's release it as a polling device.
To get
So
people
instead
on
of
it.
statistical polls, you have actual
Representative
real-time numbers, and you can slice it and dice it by
By area,
who's
age.
a registered voter, who's a voting age person,
Yep.
and you can even have people who aren't voting age
Yeah.
participate. You just identify
Right,
them
right,
so
right.
that you can segregate
Yeah, it's
their
really
numbers,
cool.
but you can show that, hey, all these young people who are the future of our country,
Yeah.
you know, are involved in this.
Totally.
So
Gives people a voice too.
I've got this plan. It's not finished yet, but I've got enough of it.
Love it.
So if you guys want a copy of it, I can email you a copy.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm going to let you enter your email information.
Sounds good.